The walls, lined with rows of suspended glass panels, each flickered with digital portraits, faces she recognized. Some from fleeting encounters in the skyscraper's sleek corridors, others from the fragmented corners of her own memory. Her eyes locked onto one portrait in particular, the image warping and stabilizing to reveal a face she knew all too well, her own. The glow from the fluorescent lights above cast long, distorted shadows across her features, mirroring the turmoil roiling within her. She reached out, fingertips grazing the cool surface of the panel, the electronic hum vibrating faintly beneath her touch. It was as if the building itself was watching, waiting, whispering secrets only the brave or the desperate would dare uncover. "Layla," a voice whispered behind her, soft but urgent. She spun around to find Ethan Shaw stepping through the doorway, his rugged face etched with concern and determination. "You need to see this." Together, they approached a sleek console embedded into the wall, its holographic interface shimmering to life at Ethan's touch. Streams of encrypted data cascaded across the display, their complex patterns unraveling under Ethan's skilled fingers as he decrypted file after file. Each document peeled back another layer of the building's dark underbelly. Detailed logs of experiments, medical reports, and most disturbingly, personal files tied to the residents themselves. "Look at this," Ethan murmured, highlighting a file labeled with Lila's name. "They've been tracking you, Morgan." "More than that, they've been experimenting on you?" Layla's heart pounded, a mix of disbelief and creeping terror tightening its grip. She scanned the contents records of neurological scans, behavioral tests, notes on memory alterations. Images flickered, cold, clinical shots of a restrained figure in an experimental chamber. Electrodes affixed to their temples, eyes closed in forced slumber. Her eyes widened. That figure was her. "No," she whispered, voice trembling. "This can't be real." Ethan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "I wish it weren't. But we need to understand exactly what they've done if we want to stop them." The weight of the revelation pressed down on Lila, her own mind a battlefield where memories fought with shadows, truth tangled with fabrication. If her past could be rewritten, what of her future? Who was she beneath the layers of manipulation? Before she could answer, a soft step echoed from the corridor. Naomi Shin emerged from the shadows, her delicate frame tense, eyes flickering with a mix of fear and resolve. "I have more," she said quietly, pulling a small tablet from her coat. Research notes, patient logs, detailed accounts of the psychological conditioning protocols. They huddled together in the cold corridor, the antiseptic scent mingling with the electric tension. Naomi's voice barely rose above a whisper as she revealed the human cost behind the data residents reduced to test subjects. Identities fractured, lives erased or rewritten in the name of progress and profit. Lila clenched her fist, the swirling storm within her settling into a steely focus. "We're not just fighting a corporation," she said, voice fierce despite the fear gnawing at her. "We're fighting for who we are." A sudden flicker from the surveillance cameras overhead reminded them that their time was limited. The sub-basement was no sanctuary. It was a trap, a cage designed to keep truths buried beneath layers of silence and control. As they gathered the files, Lila's gaze drifted back to the flickering image of herself in the experimental chamber. The lines between victim and investigator blurred. But one thing remained clear. She would confront whatever darkness lay beneath the surface, no matter the cost. The building's heartbeat thrummed around them, a pulse of digital secrets and whispered lies. And somewhere in the depths, the faces from the past watched and waited. But Layla was no longer just a face in the crowd. She was a force awakened, a spark of rebellion ignited in the shadows. And the descent was only just beginning. The walls, a seamless blend of matte gray panels and pulsating LED strips, seemed to pulse with a life of their own, a mechanical heartbeat she could neither ignore nor escape. She paused at the threshold of a large chamber. The door sliding open without a sound to reveal rows of sleek devices, each humming with an electric pulse that sent a shiver down her spine. The room was bathed in cold blue light, casting long shadows that danced across the polished floors. Cables sprawled like serpents, connecting consoles to strange apparatuses that looked more like instruments from a sci-fi dystopia than medical devices. A steady scent of antiseptic hung in the air, tinged with the faint metallic odor of circuitry. Lila's fingers brushed lightly over the nearest console, the surface warm beneath her touch as a series of holographic screens flickered to life in response. Her breath caught as she scanned the data streams cascading before her eyes encrypted files. Experimental logs, video feeds of subjects undergoing procedures. The realization settled like a stone in her gut. These machines were designed not just to observe, but to alter the very fabric of human memory. They were instruments of erasure and rewriting, tools capable of dismantling identity itself. Behind her, a soft voice broke the silence. "They call it the memory synthesis interface," Naomi Shun said, stepping forward with a nervous energy that belied her calm demeanor. "It's the heart of the project. It doesn't just remove memories, it replaces them, fabricates new experiences, rewires emotional responses." Lila turned to face the scientist, studying the delicate features framed by a crisp lab coat. Naomi's eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, the weight of knowledge pressing heavily on her shoulders. "How many people have been through this?" Lila asked, her voice low and steady despite the storm brewing inside her. Naomi hesitated, then pulled up a data file on a nearby terminal. Images of residents she recognized flickered across the screen, faces blurred or distorted, their expressions vacant. "More than you can imagine," she whispered. "Some don't even remember they were altered. Others have lost themselves entirely." A cold wave of horror washed over Lila as she processed the implications. The skyscraper was more than a home or a fortress of luxury. It was a prison for minds, a laboratory where autonomy was dismantled and identities were manufactured at the whim of corporate ambition. Her own memories suddenly felt fragile, like brittle glass threatening to shatter. The gaps, the lapses, the nagging sense of déjà vu, could they be the result of this technology? Had she already been subjected to the same manipulations she sought to expose? The thought was a knife twisting in her chest. "You're afraid," Naomi said softly, as if reading Lila's turmoil. "I am too, but the only way to fight this is to understand it, to gather proof and take it down from within." Lila nodded, steeling herself. "Then we keep moving." Before they could proceed further, an urgent alarm shattered the stillness. Red emergency lights flooded the room with a strobe-like intensity, casting frantic shadows across the walls. The machines emitted a rising chorus of beeps and warnings, security protocols activating with ruthless efficiency. "They've detected us," Naomi said, fingers flying over the controls to override lockdown sequences. "We have minutes, no, seconds. Get the data." "We need everything." Lila connected a portable drive to one of the consoles, her fingers trembling as files transferred at a dizzying pace. The room seemed to close in around her, the oppressive weight of surveillance tightening like a noose. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her mind racing to outpace the encroaching danger. As the last files downloaded, the chamber's door hissed shut, locking them in. The faint sound of footsteps echoed from the corridor outside, security forces closing in fast. "Time's up," Naomi said grimly. "We have what we came for. Now, let's get out of here." Lila took a deep breath, the taste of adrenaline sharp on her tongue. The horrifying truth was now in her hands, a weapon and a burden. She knew the path ahead would test every ounce of her resilience, but surrender was not an option. Not now, not ever. With one last glance at the cold, glowing machines, the instruments of a mind's prison, she stepped back into the shadows, ready to fight for the freedom of memory and identity itself. But as the doors sealed behind them, a whisper of doubt lingered in her mind. How much of herself had already been rewritten? And was there still a way back to the truth? Lila's breath was shallow, her heart pounding in her ears as she exchanged a quick glance with Ethan. They had come too far to turn back now, but the tension in the air was suffocating. Somewhere ahead, footsteps echoed sharply, too precise, too deliberate. "Someone's coming," Ethan whispered, voice taut. He slid a hand into his jacket pocket, fingers wrapping around a small but sturdy crowbar he'd grabbed earlier. Layla's fingers hovered over the portable terminal strapped to her wrist, ready to hack any door or system that might block their path. The footsteps grew louder, reverberating off the concrete like a warning drumbeat. Then, from the shadows emerged a figure muscular, imposing, clad in tactical black gear that seemed to absorb the dim light. Javier Cruz, the building's security chief and the embodiment of the corporation's iron grip on this place. His cold eyes locked onto them, unflinching and merciless. "End of the line," he said, voice calm but edged with menace. Lila's mind raced. Escape seemed impossible in this narrow corridor, and retreat would only mean being trapped somewhere else. Ethan stepped forward, blocking the path with a confident grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We're not looking for trouble, Cruz, just passing through." Javier's lips twitched into a faint, humorless smile. "You're trespassing on restricted ground. That's trouble enough." Without warning, he lunged. The suddenness of his attack sent a shock through Lila and Ethan. Javier's tactical training was evident, each move precise, calculated, overwhelming. Ethan swung the crowbar in a wide arc, but Javier ducked easily, countering with a sharp jab that connected with Ethan's ribs. Layla darted to the side, heart hammering, fingers scrambling over her terminal to override the corridor's security gate. But Javier was relentless, closing the distance with deadly efficiency. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Ethan used the crowbar to parry and jab, buying Lila precious seconds. She spotted a loose panel on the wall and yanked it free, revealing a tangle of exposed wires. With a quick flick, she disrupted the corridor's lighting, plunging them into near darkness. "Now," she hissed. Ethan shoved Javier backward as Lila ducked into the shadows, her breath ragged. The sudden blackout disoriented their pursuer, but he recovered quickly, his silhouette a dark menace against the faint emergency lights. They moved as one, slipping through a side door Lila had unlocked moments before. The heavy metal door clanged shut behind them, muffling the sounds of pursuit but doing little to still their pounding hearts. Inside, the air was colder, tinged with the sterile scent of antiseptic and electric ozone. The sub-basement's maze of corridors stretched endlessly, each turn a question mark, each shadow a potential threat. Ethan leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "We can't keep running like this. He's not going to stop." Layla's gaze hardened. "Then we don't have a choice." "We go deeper, find the core. Expose everything." The fight had left them shaken, but more resolute than ever. The stakes had never been higher, and the enemy never closer. Their footsteps echoed softly as they ventured further into the labyrinth, every sound amplified by the weight of unseen eyes watching, waiting. As they disappeared down another corridor, the faint glow of monitors flickered in the distance, a reminder that this was only the beginning. The sub-basement held secrets darker than they had imagined, and Javier Cruz was only the first guardian standing between them and the truth. Lila's fingers tightened into fists. No matter the cost, she would not let the shadows consume her, not now. Not ever. And somewhere beyond the cold steel walls, the mastermind watched, calculating the next move in a deadly game of cat and mouse that was far from over. Digital monitors flickered with streams of encrypted data, casting an eerie glow over the glass and steel surfaces. Lila Morgan's breath hitched the moment she stepped inside. There, standing with an effortless grace behind a sleek console, was Dr. Marcus Vell, the man whose name had haunted her investigation from the start. His figure was impeccable, tailored suit, thin-rimmed glasses perched precisely on his nose, eyes cold and calculating beneath the harsh illumination. He didn't flinch as she crossed the threshold, nor did his lips twitch in surprise. Instead, he regarded her with a steady, almost clinical gaze, as if assessing an anomaly worthy of study rather than a threat. "Ms. Morgan," Marcus greeted, voice smooth and steady. "I wondered when you might finally arrive." Layla's hands curled into fists at her sides, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "Your experiments have ruined lives," she said, voice sharp. "Manipulating memories, controlling minds, it's monstrous." A faint smile ghosted across Marcus's lips, enigmatic and unsettling. Monstrous or evolution. Humanity has always sought to transcend its limitations. This is merely the next step, perfecting control over the mind to eliminate chaos, suffering, and error. She shook her head, the weight of her fragmented memories pressing heavily on her. "You erase people's identities. You steal what makes them human." His eyes flickered with something almost like regret. "I once believed differently. but personal loss teaches harsh lessons. My wife, my daughter, they were lost to randomness, to fate. If I can develop technology to control the mind, to prevent such tragedies, the cost is justified. Layla's heart pounded with a complex mixture of sympathy and revulsion. Here was a man broken by grief, yet consumed by an ambition so vast it blinded him to the humanity he claimed to protect. "You're playing God," she said, voice trembling with anger and sorrow. "But you're destroying the very essence of what makes us free." Marcus's gaze hardened. "Freedom is an illusion when chaos reigns. My work will bring order, purpose, and peace." The room seemed to contract around them, the tension thick and suffocating. Layla's mind raced. Every detail, every word was a thread in the complex tapestry of this conspiracy. She realized that breaking Marcus's resolve wouldn't be a matter of brute force, but of exposing the fragile humanity beneath his cold exterior. "I won't let you get away with this," Lila vowed, stepping closer. "I'll show the world what you've done." He chuckled softly, a sound devoid of warmth. "Then prepare yourself, Ms. Morgan, because this battle is far from over." As Marcus turned back to his console, fingers dancing over the interface, Layla felt the weight of the moment settle upon her. The mastermind was no longer an abstract enemy, but a man with scars and secrets, and a dangerous determination to reshape reality itself. Their confrontation marked the beginning of a final, harrowing descent into the depths of the skyscraper's darkest secrets, where the fate of countless minds hung in the balance. The air thrummed with the hum of machines and the unspoken promise of conflict. A duel not just of technology, but of wills and ideals, a battle that would test Lila's resilience and the very fabric of her identity. With a steadying breath, she prepared to face the storm. The mastermind had been revealed, but the fight was only just beginning. The air was cool, tinged faintly with the sterile scent of antiseptics and humming electronics. Ahead, Dr. Marcus Vell stood perfectly still, impeccably dressed as always, his cold eyes peering behind thin-rimmed glasses. The faint mechanical whirring of servers and the low hum of digital equipment filled the room, underscoring an oppressive atmosphere of calculated control. "Welcome, Layla," Vell said smoothly, his voice steady and calm, betraying no hint of the storm that raged beneath his placid exterior. "I've been expecting you." Layla met his gaze, her piercing eyes unfaltering despite the knot of tension tightening in her chest. "I'm here to end this, Marcus." He smiled thinly, a gesture devoid of warmth. "End this, or perhaps you seek to understand the inevitable." With a subtle gesture, he activated a nearby console. Instantly, holographic projections bloomed into the era-swirling montage of images and data streams that painted a vision of the future. Cities bathed in artificial light, citizens moving in synchronized patterns, expressions serene but vacant. Children learning through immersive neural interfaces. Governments and corporations seamlessly entwined in a new order where chaos had been eradicated, not through brute force, but through the quiet recalibration of the mind. "This," Vell intoned, "is the future I am crafting. A world where human conflict is minimized because we control the variables, memory, emotion, identity. Imagine the suffering we can prevent, the efficiency we can achieve." Layla's breath caught. The images were dazzling and terrifying in equal measure. She saw herself in the crowd, one face among millions, her thoughts no longer her own. The weight of his vision pressed down on her like a physical force. "You call it control?" she said steadily, "but it's nothing less than obliteration. Erasing what makes us human, the freedom to choose, to remember, to feel." Vell's eyes narrowed, but he did not waver. Freedom is a luxury that breeds chaos. Order requires sacrifice, and I am the architect of that order. You, of all people, should understand the cost of uncontrolled freedom. Lila's fists clenched. Memories flickered at the edges of her mind, fragments of experiments. Moments lost, a creeping fog threatening to swallow her identity. But within that storm, a fierce spark of defiance blazed. "I'm not your experiment," she said, voice low and resolute, "and I won't be your puppet." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. The holograms danced silently between them, casting shifting light and shadow over their faces. Then, a sudden flicker of power caused the room to dim briefly, long shadows stretching across the floor. Vel's gaze locked with hers, an unspoken challenge passing between them. Then prepare yourself, Lila, because this battle isn't just for you, it's for the soul of humanity. The air thickened with tension as Lila steadied herself, every sense on edge. The confrontation that had loomed since she first uncovered the sub-basement was now inevitable. Her mind raced, strategizing, analyzing, preparing for the fight to come not just with code and cyber skills, but with everything she was. "I'm ready," she whispered, the spark of rebellion burning brighter than ever. "And I will stop you." Outside the chamber, the distant hum of security protocols and the watchful eyes of unseen cameras were reminders that this was no longer just a battle of wills, it was a war fought in shadows, in silence, beneath the surface of the world she thought she knew. As the holographic images faded, leaving only the cold glow of monitors and the sterile hum of machinery, Layla took a deep breath. The future Dr. Vel envisioned was a nightmare, but she would fight to ensure it never came to pass. The fight for freedom, identity, and truth was only just beginning. Her descent into darkness had revealed horrors beyond her imagination, but it had also forged a resolve that no amount of mind control could break. 10 floors below, in the heart of the skyscraper, the battle for the soul of humanity was underway, and Lila Morgan was its fiercest guardian. The chamber's door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss, sealing the moment in a fragile silence. The final confrontation loomed, and with it, the hope that even beneath the deepest control, the human spirit could endure. Layla's eyes burned with determination as she stepped forward, ready to face the darkness and to light the way out. The chair she was strapped into was cold and unyielding, its metal arms clamping around her wrists and ankles with clinical precision. Electrodes, thin and intrusive, adhered to her temples and scalp, their faint pricks a constant reminder of the invasive procedure underway. Around her, the room pulsed with an eerie blue glow from the digital interface that encased the chamber, a cage of technology designed to reach deep inside her mind and unravel the carefully woven threads of her memories. Her breath came in shallow bursts, chest rising and falling as panic threatened to take hold. Yet beneath the rising tide of fear burned a core of fierce determination. "I will not let them take me," she whispered, voice barely audible over the low hum of machines. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, darted around the room, seeking any point of leverage in the maze of data streams and sterile walls. Dr. Marcus Vel stood silently nearby, a figure of cold calculation. His thin-rimmed glasses caught the light of the monitors, his eyes sharp and unyielding behind them. "You must understand, Ms. Morgan," he said, voice smooth and devoid of empathy. "This is not personal, it is evolution. Control is necessary to prevent chaos. Your memories, your identity, they are variables in an equation we intend to solve." Layla's gaze locked with his, defiance flaring despite the creeping numbness in her limbs. "You're erasing who I am to protect your profit margins," she spat, voice trembling but resolute. "I won't be your experiment." Outside the chamber, in a cramped control room thick with tension, Ethan Shaw and Dr. Naomi Chun worked in tandem, their fingers flying over keyboards and touchscreens. Ethan's rugged features were etched with sweat, his usual easy smile replaced by a grim set of determination. "We're getting close," he muttered, eyes scanning lines of code streaming past. Naomi's delicate face was taut with worry, her brow furrowed as she monitored Lila's vital signs and neural feedback. If they push any harder, she might lose everything. "We have to disrupt the process now." Their whispered voices mingled with the mechanical symphony of whirring fans and blinking lights, a desperate chorus against the clinical backdrop. They were Lila's lifeline, tethering her to the outside world as the invasive technology gnawed at her mind. Inside Lila's consciousness, memories flickered like fragile flame faces of friends and foes, the echo of past betrayals, the warmth of fleeting moments of hope. But the assault was relentless. The technology probed, rewrote, and sought to erase these mental imprints. Each flash of pain was a battle, each moment of clarity a victory. She clung to the fragments, repeating names and images in her mind like a mantra. "Remember who you are?" she urged herself, voice a fragile thread woven through the storm. The line between reality and manipulation blurred. Fragments of her identity threatened to dissolve into the void. Marcus watched impassively, convinced of the righteousness of his vision even as Lila's resistance chipped away at the efficacy of his methods. "She's stronger than anticipated," he admitted to his team, fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Adjust the parameters. We cannot allow this anomaly to persist." But the cracks in the system were beginning to show. Ethan and Naomi's coordinated cyber assault outside the chamber disrupted the neural interface, sending erratic pulses that gave Lila precious moments of respite. With every interruption, Lila's grip on herself tightened, the fog of erased memories lifting ever so slightly. The battle was as much within her mind as in the cold corridors of the Skyscraper's sub-basement. A war waged in silence and shadows, with stakes that transcended physical survival. To lose her memories would mean to lose herself entirely, to become a hollow vessel for corporate ambition. As the procedure faltered, Layla's eyes snapped open, a spark of life and recognition blazing through the haze. "I'm still here," she thought fiercely. "They won't win." Her voice, barely a whisper at first, grew stronger with each breath. "You can't erase me." "Not yet." Outside, Ethan's fingers flew faster, a triumphant glint in his eyes. Naomi's nervous smile was a fragile beacon of hope amid the encroaching darkness. The battle was far from over, but the breaking point had passed. Lila Morgan had survived the onslaught and, in doing so, had uncovered a weakness in the corporation's impenetrable armor. The next moves would be critical and the stakes higher than ever. Her mind, fractured but unbroken, was her weapon now, and she was ready to wield it. The clinical chamber's lights dimmed momentarily as the last shock waves of the disrupted interface settled. Layla's breathing steadied, her pulse slowing from a frantic race to a resolute beat. The room seemed to exhale with her, the oppressive atmosphere lifting just enough to allow a breath of hope. Dr. Vell's eyes narrowed, calculating the implications. "This isn't the end," he vowed quietly, a promise as chilling as the sterile air that surrounded them. "Control is inevitable," but Layla's defiant gaze met his, unyielding. "Not while I'm alive." The war for her mind was only beginning, and she was ready to fight. Outside the chamber, Ethan exhaled sharply, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. "She's holding on," he said, voice low but steady. Naomi nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. "For now, but we need a plan. Something to break them for good." Together, they turned back to their screens, the glow of the data reflecting the fierce determination that bound them. In the labyrinth beneath the city, 10 floors below, the shadows stirred, but so did the resistance. Lila Morgan was still here, and she was fighting back.